Imagine waking up in a stone fortress, surrounded by tapestries, falcons, and the smell of roasted boar, while your servants dress you, and your breakfast involves 3 types of meat before noon. You think royal life was all glamour? Think again. Between cold rooms, political backstabbing, and deadly toilets, castle life was anything but cozy. What did kings and queens actually do all day in those massive castles? The truth is stranger and more fascinating, and the fairy tales. Welcome to another deep dive into the strange, lavish, and often uncomfortable world of the Middle Ages. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on life inside a medieval castle. Not for the peasants or knights, but for the royal elite, from sunrise rituals to midnight secrets. 1. The castle. A fortress, a power symbol. Medieval castles were not just homes. They were strongholds of power, security, and showmanship. Royals didn't live in cozy cottages. Their homes were massive, intimidating stone fortresses, perched on hills or nestled in valleys, often surrounded by moats, walls, and watchtowers. These structures were built for defense. Thick walls, narrow windows, spiral staircases, but inside, they were symbols of authority. Grand halls, private chapels, chambers full of fine fabrics, and elaborate gardens showed off royal wealth. But let's be clear, it wasn't always glamorous. Drafty halls, cold stone floors, rats in the kitchens. A king's castle might look powerful from the outside, but inside, it was a daily battle with discomfort. 2. Royal morning rituals. The royal day began at sunrise or earlier. No alarm clocks, just servants quietly entering the room and lighting fires to warm the chambers. A king or queen didn't dress alone. They had an entourage, called a chamberlain, ladies-in-waiting, and various assistants, whose job was to help them bathe, dress, and prepare for the day. Bathing wasn't daily, it was ceremonial, often perfumed with herbs, oils, or even milk. Baths were rare and luxurious, and water had to be hauled by servants in buckets from the well or river. Getting dressed was a production. For royals, clothes were not just about comfort, they were power statements. Rich colors like deep blue, crimson, and purple, which were incredibly expensive dyes, fur linings, and gold thread embroidery turned them into walking displays of wealth. Queens wore heavy velvet gowns with long trains and layers of linen undergarments. Kings wore hose, tunics, surcoats, cloaks, and belts often adorned with swords, even at breakfast. 3. Royal meals, feasts, fasts, and flaming birds. Now to the kitchen, the heart of castle life. And no, medieval royalty didn't just snack on bread and cheese. Breakfast was light. Bread, ale, maybe cheese. But lunch and dinner were massive, multi-course affairs, often involving dozens of dishes. A normal feast could include roasted swan, venison pie, spiced wine, eel stew, and something called cockentrice, a bizarre hybrid of pig and chicken sewn together. Meals were eaten in the Great Hall, with minstrels playing music, jesters performing, and nobles seated by rank. The closer you sat to the monarch, the more important you were. Royalty didn't eat with forks. That came later. They used knives, fingers, and trenchers, stale bread used as plates. Hygiene? Let's just say, hand-washing bowls were optional, not guaranteed. And yes, there were food tasters, someone whose job was to taste the king's food first, in case it was poisoned. 4. Daily duties, more than sitting on thrones. You might think kings and queens just lounged around, but royal life was filled with responsibility. A typical day involved holding court sessions, where the king would hear petitions, settle disputes, and issue laws. Meeting with advisors and nobles to discuss taxes, wars, alliances, and marriages. Reading letters and responding to messages, often through scribes, as many royals couldn't read fluently. Overseeing the castle's operations, food supplies, guard rotations, repairs, and ceremonies. Queens were equally busy, especially if the king was away at war. They might manage estates, oversee charity work, negotiate with rival families, or act as regents. 5. Romance, marriage, and bedroom secrets. Forget fairy tales. Royal marriages were rarely romantic. They were political weapons. Kings as queens often married young, sometimes as early as 12 or 13. and almost always to form alliances. A French princess might marry an English king, not because of love, but to stop a war. That said, private life in the castle was full of intrigue. Secret lovers, illegitimate children, and scandalous affairs were common behind closed doors. Servants often gossiped about who visited whose bedchamber after dark. And don't expect privacy. 6. Leisure and entertainment. After a long day of governance, how did medieval royals unwind? Falconry was one of the most elite pastimes, training birds of prey to hunt small animals. Chess and backgammon were popular with both kings and queens, often played for hours. Storytelling, music, and dancing in the Great Hall provided social entertainment. In winter, royals might gather by giant fireplaces, sip warm wine, and listen to poetry. Tournaments were the ultimate spectacle. Jousting nights, banners waving, and a cheering crowd. It wasn't just for fun. These events showed off strength, loyalty, and honor. 7. Toilets, hygiene, and daily discomforts. Let's not sugarcoat it. Castle hygiene was rough. Toilets were called garderobes, basically a wooden seat over a shaft or hole that dropped into a pit, or sometimes the moat. Toilet paper? Nope. Moss, hay, or rags were used instead. Baths happened maybe once a week, if you were lucky. Lice, fleas, and vermin were common, and perfumes often masked body odor. Servants boiled clothes to kill pests. Royals wore gloves not just for fashion, but to keep their hands clean or hide the dirt. Despite all the wealth, medieval castles were loud, smoky, and often smelled of chamber pots and damp stone. 8. Security, intrigue, and danger. Living in a castle didn't mean safety. In fact, being royal was risky. Assassination attempts were real. Poisonings happened more than you'd think. Political enemies might attack, siege, or infiltrate the castle. That's why castles had hidden escape tunnels, guard patrols, and weapons at the ready. Even within the walls, betrayal was a daily fear. A cousin, a courtier, even a servant could turn against you. Many kings didn't sleep peacefully, not because of bad beds, but because of bad politics. 9. Nightfall in the castle. As the sun set, castle life changed. Without electric lights, darkness ruled. Servants lit candles, torches, and fireplaces. Halls echoed with the sauce of locks clicking, dogs barking, and wind against the stone. Most royals went to bed early, under layers of wool and fur. Winters were brutal, chambers were freezing, and beds were often shared for warmth. But sometimes, the night brought secret meetings, planning, or even ghost stories. Many royals believed in spirits, omens, and signs. And castles, with their creaks and drafts, made the perfect setting for medieval nightmares. 10. Legacy. Why royal castle life still fascinates us. So why are we still obsessed with castles and royal life? Maybe it's the contrast. Extreme wealth versus primitive living. Power and prestige, surrounded by cold stone and danger. Or maybe it's because the lives of kings and queens weren't so different from ours, full of routine, stress, joy, scandal, and survival. These castles weren't just stone buildings. They were the stage for some of the most dramatic stories in history. And behind every golden crown was a human being just trying to stay alive, stay in power, and maybe, just maybe, enjoy life in a stone palace. Peeked into royal chambers and heard the secrets of medieval castle life. Would you want to live like a royal in the Middle Ages? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey through time, give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe for more medieval history, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you never miss a story from the past. Thanks for watching, and until next time, may your castle be warm and your chamber pot empty.